Jason Riggs, I can't see you either. What about now? How about now? I can't see you either. What about now? How about now? All right. Turn this off. It's coming back. Coming back. I got audio coming back here. Hold on, everybody. Sitting some final sessions here. Yep. All right. And there was light. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Ian. Hey, welcome everyone. Just getting set up here last minute. Seems like every week we do this, we're trying something new and harder, and it just complications work out. So I'm going to give everybody just 1 minute. I know we're a few minutes, but an email went out as a reminder here saying we were live. We might get a few more people. Looks like we've got a few dozen right now. So I want to see if we get a few more people here. All right. Tell me right quick while we're waiting, where are you from, Ian? Tell everybody's here. Just give me a shout out where you're calling in from, or you're visiting from, or whatever. And I will be looking over here at my slides and as my presentation, so I hope that's okay, everybody. So I've got Marshall. I can see now. Indiana, very nice, very nice. Fort Myers, oh boy, we got one from Florida. You know what? They got a whole different set of rules down in Florida, don't you? Jason Riggs. Okay, cool. Hey, Sarah, how are you? Austin, Texas, keeping it weird, and Jacksonville, Florida. Cool. So we've got a bunch of a warm climate. It's pretty much warm everywhere. We're in Richmond, Virginia, and it's sunny and probably mid to upper 80s today. So no complaints there. So thanks for chiming in where you're at. I'm hoping this goes smoother from here on. Our first 2 or 3 minutes, we were just like trying to get where you could hear us and see us and make sure everything was working good. So looking forward to the webinar today. Thanks for joining in. We got a lot more people joining, just like I thought we would. So we're kicking and going. John Brennan's in Richmond. Man, you should have come here to the studio and helped me present this thing. I would have put you to work and paid you. That's awesome. So I guess we'll get started. Anybody else that comes in at the last minute, there will be a replay of this. Those of you that are watching, if you have to jump out, I'm going to try to keep it, at a good time. But hey, Vivian, we're going to try to keep this on time. But if you have to jump out, I know what industry we're in and I know what happens. But I really want to make it compelling all the way to the end. I won't say that I'm the most dynamic person in the world, but I think this subject is really going to be good. So without further ado, hey, Chris, how are you, Chris? Clark Brown, I run a consulting firm and a business restoration coaching firm called Restoration Advisors with myself and my team. We provide business and operations coaching. I was a contractor for 18 and a half years. Been in this business now about 21, something like that. So I have the experience. I was meeting with some people last week and they said, there's a lot of consultants in this industry that don't have experience. Well, I have a lot of flaws, but that's not one of them. So I know where you're sitting, and today's topic, I understand, not only from having been in the field, in the office for the restoration company of my own and others, but in the last few years, I travel this country endlessly and go to conferences and meet a lot of people, talk to a lot of contractors, and I have a front row seat to the pain points, the misunderstandings, and the enlightened positions that people take. So I'm hoping to bring everything I've learned into a discussion point today. So if we don't have anything else, we've got Zachary Long. Hello, Zachary. Good to see you. Brandy, always great to see Brandy. And then Captain Bob. How are you, Bob? I was with Bob last week up in Albany, New York. So, hey, let's get started. Throughout the time that we're here together, I will try my best to take a look over. If there's a question about something, I will take a little small minute break in between not break, but a little pause to see if there are any questions about what I'm talking about. And then I'll leave it up in the end for some questions, okay? And then it goes without saying at the very end, if you need to contact us, you can do so through restorationadvisors.com, and that contact information will be on the screen. Today's webinar is just to help answer a lot of the questions, clear up the myths, and discuss custom price lists. I know it says get off of Xactimate. I'll explain that in a moment. And then talking about if you're going to stay with Xactimate, you can alter the line item prices. I want to kind of clear some things up that come out from a lot of lecturing that I do around the country and teaching classes. I'm going to try to make this around 40 minutes. It could go a little longer depending on the questions, but I'm going to go through this, okay? So I want to keep everyone here. I know we're on different time zones for a few people. We're on the East Coast, so some people are going to be getting close to when their crews are coming back in from the field if they haven't already. So, yeah, so it's good stuff. All right, my slides aren't moving already. There we go. First off, I'm going to go over our promise for today. I've got a few commitments that I want to make to you. I will not be doing a sales pitch today. There will be no link to follow. There will be no thing to buy. There will be no catch. I actually don't like that in our industry. I think education is education and then business is business. I have a business that I make money off of what I know and what I can help people achieve. But today, I told you you would have a webinar with no sales pitch, no strings attached. I call it a Pinocchio, no strings attached. So we're just going to giving content, having a little bit of a lecture, and I will open myself up for anyone that wants to contact us in real time, online, however you like to communicate. From the title and from anyone that knows me, you might have the perception that I'm going to be bashing Xactimate. Clarifying moment here. I don't hate Xactimate. I don't think it's the evil that everyone thinks it is. I don't even hold them responsible for many of the things that they get blamed for. Xactimate is a fantastic subscription-based service, and it gets better all the time. I'm also aware that the overwhelming majority of our industry uses it and likely will continue to do so. All I'm giving is perspective and alternatives to what I'm constantly asked. I just can't tell you how often we're asked to, can I do this, estimating, scoping, invoicing, with anything other than Xactimate? The answer is yes, but I will not be here to bash Xactimate. It's a software. I always say it's like Excel by Microsoft. It's just a software, numbers in, numbers out, and that's it. Completely modifiable, and Xactimate will tell you the same thing. So the topics that we're going to talk about today, I like to say they're going to be simple, but they're not easy. In concept, it's simple. To actually put it into place through the different steps which we're going to have throughout the event, you're going to realize, and honestly, when you try to do it, you realize it just doesn't happen quickly. So you need to be honest with yourself, make a plan, figure out the steps that it's going to take to get to there, and then make more steps to get to the next one. Trying to do anything all at one time, as you know, will force you to have frustration and usually vacate the effort altogether. And I think that's a lot of why we're where we are. So, and then what we're talking about today will not apply directly to those that are doing program work or on a TPA or any kind of MSA, Master Service Agreement. If you have signed an agreement or you are committed to use a structured price list of some sort, this is clearly not going to apply or help you on that particular line or stream of revenue. But what it will do is if you are trying to leave those platforms, leave those ecosystems, which I'm a huge fan of. I don't believe they do our industry any good, but I understand what their place is. If you're going to try to leave there and do some private work, this is how you do that. And I think this will provide you a lot of value in that one little chasm. So that's my promises to you today. I'd like to identify who I think the audience of today's will be really quickly. This will not be probably much of a reconstruction conversation. I do believe that Xactimate is ideal for doing complex construction because of the number of line items, finishes, combinations of things. I think that Xactimate was probably created for construction, but not created for mitigation, but it has been crowbarred in and made to retrofit into it. And I think that's why we have that problem. So today, this is going to be for those mitigation, the water, fire, mold, emergency services, or other ancillary things that apply to things that are emergency services, that more quick response, and that only have a few dozen line items, easily to export that out into something else and price your jobs your own way. Sounds good? I think our audience is also a large number of people who believe that you are required or expected to price your jobs based on what Xactimate is publishing in their price table, their price data that they call it. I know this is true. An alarming number of people ask me, how do I make more money if I can't charge more because of Xactimate? Now, the question has two sides to it. We'll get into that in a minute. But if you believe that and you're not on programs with TPAs, you've been misled or you're not willing to see the truth. Xactimate does not expect you to use their pricing. So if you're using it, now I know the carrier does, and that's the pressure you get, and we're going to talk about that. But fact and fiction and myth and reality are two different things, and I want to talk today about facts, and I want to talk about the survival of your business. You do not need to use Xactimate. There's no policy in this industry. There's no reference to industry standard pricing written or taught anywhere. It doesn't exist. No two companies realistically should charge the same thing. We're going to talk about that today. Hope that makes sense. Who else in our audience? Those that are just ready. Those that have hit a wall, or what I like to call the rock bottom, which is I'm not dealing with this stress anymore of not making money. I work too hard. I've put too much into my company to live off lethargic profit margins. Legitimate? So those that are ready, I think that they're here. Or in the case of Bob Timmel that's here from Collins, New York, those that are already relatively free, those that are already living this life and probably could chime in on some of these topics, but maybe they're here because they say, what else is there that I don't know? I know that some people that are free from this say the same thing. Why didn't I do this long ago? What's the issue? I want to move into this. Do we have any questions so far? I see here we do fire, water, mold. We're not on any programs and have not used Xactimate in 6 years. Cool. Yep. So Bob lives this life, a couple $1 million a year, good business. I could give you companies all day long. I just want you to believe. I've never led anybody astray in this industry. It can happen, but it's simple, not easy. We're going to go back to that. Thank you, Bob. So what's the issue? I mentioned it a moment ago. There's a big myth that Xactimate is a pricing platform. It's not. It's an estimating platform. Those are two different things. And what I mean by that is not Xactimate as a program is not to give you the price. It's to help you begin to develop a number to get you to the price. But then when you start measuring real costs to do things and modifications, you're not going to be using what Xactimate says. So I tell everyone, Xactimate is not an invoicing platform. It is an estimating platform. And I think it's really important to be clear on what that is. If you were to use Xactimate on mitigation, your customer and your insurance company don't even have to know. You are not required to share an Xactimate report, printout, pamphlet, anything to them. You work up your number to do this work based on your company's guidelines in the back office and create a transparent, well-documented invoice of what you did. Those things can be achieved. So That's the myth. You can price your jobs for whatever you want. We've had some good conversations recently about pricing. What is another issue? Listen, I run a very lean company. Every company I've ever worked for, I've been very cost conscious. Doesn't mean I'm cheap. I'll spend money where it needs to be spent, but I will not spend money where it's not needed. I believe that Xactimate, for doing mitigation because of the efficiency and effectivity of it, and honestly because of the troubles and the complexities of it, it's too expensive. I don't even use it right now, so I believe that some people can probably tell me if they have one subscription, it might be over $2,000, it might be $1,800. I don't know what it is. I know that some groups and franchises and networks get a discount on it, but I will also tell you, I read once that Xactimate reports that their average user has 2.4 subscriptions. So take that and double it, and then I know people that have 5 or 10. You do the multiplier on, let's say it's $1,800 a month. I believe that that's a very expensive software if you're using it for mitigation, especially mitigation only. Now, if you're doing construction, we've already talked about that. You're going to probably want to keep that. I will tell you, a lot of people do construction without Xactimate, people that aren't in the insurance industry. So we need to ask ourselves, are we doing it because the insurance wants us to, or is it actually helping us get the right number on the job? It's a very good question. I don't have the answer for everyone, but I think I know what they are. And then what's the other issue? It's just one more platform. I was talking to, Toby was talking to a young, newish technician in our industry the other day that went to work for a company from the outside, and he says, why does it have to be so hard? I'm working with 4 platforms to try to do this job. He comes from an industry where he had one that did everything. Estimate, customer CRM, communicate, updates, marketing, and then of course invoicing and payments received. We're talking efficiency there. You don't go to another business and they have 4 to 5 to 6 different softwares. In our world, we've got Xactimate clearly. You might have a CRM or project management software. Maybe it's Dash, maybe it's Job Docs, Job Progress, PSA. There's a lot of those, right? Encircle's another one, which is not a job management as much like all your jobs. It's a job. That's another one. Quickbooks, if I didn't already mention that. You might have Company Cam for taking that. You might have this. You might have that. You might have DocuSign, trying to get your documents signed by your customer in the field so it's digital. It's just a lot. And I think now that labor is so difficult to find good workers, that we're trying to train them to do the mitigation, I think that trying to create people that are software engineers might have, Brady just said overwhelming is the word that Brady said. Brady says she knows some people on the platforms are overwhelming. They are. It's easy for the owner, the leader, to think about, I'm trying to solve a lot of problems with all of these different platforms, but they're not putting themselves in the shoes of their staff. And I think that's creating a large amount of overload and pushback, and really just saying, I can't do the job well enough because I'm spending half the time documenting the job. I won't even talk about documenting today. I'm a big fan of documentation, but I think that we overdo it. So, okay. If we go back to the title of this and why you're all here, if we want to sit with our team next week on Monday or later this week, you have a leadership meeting on Thursday. Team, we want to talk about moving towards pricing our mitigation jobs in something other than Xactimate or whatever. It's not just Xactimate. There's an easier way, and the easiest way, the most cost-effective way, the simplest way for your team to do it so they can focus on what's most important, which is the work they do and the customers they serve. The more time you do that, the better your company will do. You are not getting rich by over-documenting your jobs. You're appeasing the carrier so that they will pay you and release funds that they've already promised to send, but you're not getting customers that are wowed by like, oh my gosh, you guys are incredible, and blah, blah, blah. This is what I'm talking about. To do this, I think the first step is you have to learn, know, and understand what your true cost to do the jobs are. I know that there's a lot of people in this industry that aren't quite clear on that. And what I'm talking about is your general overhead. What I'm talking about is your loaded labor rates. If you pay someone $20 an hour on payroll, I think most of you know, if you're owners and leaders, you know that that is not $20 an hour to be allocated towards what it's costing you to do that job. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about understanding some of the job costs. We're going to identify, you're going to identify the right platform to do this in. And I may be going a little quicker than the slides are, and I don't want to do so. So let me go back to the first one for just a moment. I can't, on this session, show everybody a P&L and teach you everything there is to know about the job costs, because everyone's company is different, and it would take way more than 40 minutes or whatever we're going to be on here. You might have an accountant. If you don't, you might find one, but find someone or reach out to us. It's not a sales pitch. You need to understand what it's costing you, true cost, hidden cost, to do that job. And that number is not just what you're paying, and it's not just workers' comp. It's your overhead, all the utilities, your marketing spend, your insurances, your vehicle insurance, all this stuff. And then it's the training that you're spending. Where do you think, when you send your team to get training out of town, AMRT, $1,100, hotel, maybe a rent car, maybe the gas to get there, per diem, spending money, the money to take the test, you might be looking at $3,000, $4,000. And if they take 2 a year, it matches up what I think it really, to get a good technician trained up, it takes probably $10,000 to $12,000. How does that come back in if we're only billing an Xactimate at $38.50 for a remediation tech? Maybe you're getting 42 in your market. Still not enough, because it's costing you probably 34. I really do think so. There's some studies out there. There's some exercises that I do. And if anybody knows a plumber, they don't respond. Every job they go to, they're looking at the labor burden. The labor for the hour for a person is really well over 100, because you're going to figure in vacation time, days off, sick days, times when there's no work and they're working in the shop and you're just trying to keep your team supported. That all gets put into your labor burden, your overhead. Your customer is responsible to pay for you to be a profitable company. That's how you figure your price. My retainer that my clients pay, they don't pay for it. It gets bundled into their loaded rate on what they charge. Now, I'd like to switch gears, and some of you, if you understand this, great. This is going to be an easier conversation. Let's think of a restaurant. A restaurant has to know what to charge for a burger because of what the food cost is, the rent, the staff, the everything, the salaries, the insurance, the liquor license, on and on, spoilage, waste, dishwasher salary. You get what I'm saying. And then they got to figure out how many of those are we going to sell. This is how much each. They're going to worry about being competitive. This is what we're doing. I think in today's market, restoration technicians should probably be getting paid $22 to $27 an hour. Probably by the time you add in an average restoration company doing $2 or $3 million a year and all the complexities of that, you should be billing somewhere upwards of or beyond minimum $62 to $65 an hour. Now, this is not me talking about what the insurance will pay, because if it was up to them, they would want to pay 13. Okay? So you've got to learn to do this, to customize a price list is for you. You have to know that number. Now, I don't want to say this incorrectly. I don't completely agree with those in the industry that say you have to justify your price to the insurance company or to the customer. I think you have to be competitive, and I think you have to provide visible, transparent value. I think it's just a transaction with your customer. I understand that in our field, in our industry, we have this overwhelming amount of empathy. And I think this is the crux of everything. I think that honestly, Xactimate has caused much of our understanding of our true job costs. Let me say that for just a minute before I go into the empathy. Xactimate has created an ecosystem where they let you put in your zip code, they spit out a number, and that's an easy pull of an arm. That's what my price should be. That has nothing to do with your price. That is an average of the market based on their feedback. If you don't understand feedback, we've got a course, a real short little mini course lecture that exposes how Xactimate comes up with their price. It's really interesting and amazing to understand that, wow, we are the ones that are responsible for the prices being low in Xactimate from their published rates, the ones we're not supposed to use. They could be higher. They could be double if we were using the software correctly. And then the pushback you get from the carrier for the published price would no longer be relevant. That's a whole different conversation today, but I want you to know that has caused a lot of people to focus more on the drying and cleaning and the restoration side and not knowing their numbers. If you know your numbers truly, and I know Brandy's on here, Brandy does a lot of accounting for jobs and job costing, and Bob does too. If you know what it really costs you, you would be mad at yourself for doing the jobs at the rate that you have been for so long. And you would clearly understand that no wonder we are sometimes strapped from the receivables. Receivables are a whole different issue. So you've got to know your numbers. It's literally what a business 101 coach would tell you. Let's start from there. Then when you know that, I help a lot of clients do this. So you've got to identify the process of estimating. And when I say the process is how well I'll estimate my jobs for my customers for them to know what the invoice is going to be, what the expectations are. I teach, and I'm a big fan of, and there are certain states. Who here's from Indiana? We had somebody from Indiana here. And I know, I want to say there's another state, Ohio. Those states are required, if you do in-home services, you are required to put a number on a job before the job, okay? So you've got to estimate up front. It's possible. It's simple, it's not easy. The hard part's training. We're going to talk about that. You know what your job should be. You got to figure out am I going to estimate by square foot, type of materials, which is the time per position, per class, and then the materials that I use, and then obviously your equipment. I like to tell people, if you were getting the rates you needed to for the labor that you've got, for the specialists that you employ, you would be less concerned. We wouldn't be in the equipment rental business. We're not. I think the equipment makes up for the low margins that we make on our labor. So you've got to identify, how am I going to do that? Am I always going to have a first responder, a project manager, or an estimator that goes out, or the owner? If you're the owner and you're going to every single job to estimate it, I will tell you there's a better way. I've had companies full of frontline technicians, lead techs, that could price the job, tell the customer a ROM or an estimated budgetary number, and then keep up with it throughout the time. We could definitely talk about that later too. But if that's the process, you're going to customize your price list. You're going to tell your customer this is what it's going to cost. You're going to provide so much value that that's going to seem like a bargain to the customer. All that happens from feeling comfortable and confident. I think that there's a lot of people who don't feel confident justifying, defending their invoice because they don't really feel like they know what their number should be, and they almost feel compelled to think that they're overcharging. Does that make sense? Is there anybody here that follows what I'm saying there? I think a lot of people give money back easily when the carrier pushes back or threatens the customer against you or something like that. But I think if people really knew what it cost, and that me doing this job for less will put my company in financial trouble, I think I think people would stop doing that. Now, alternatively, if you're making a great margin and you have some room to wiggle, I think you should probably be charging less, and that's it. Now, when you say charge less, you only work for one person. You only work for the customer. Working for less is only going to give the insurance company more. You should be making a good, healthy margin so that you have money for those days. Calls don't come in every single day. You need to have a profit bank so you can pull out to serve your team in those dry cycles. So you've got to figure out a process. Is it going to be you? It's going to be the lead tech. Again, maybe that's a whole nother workshop that we do showing how to be our first responder, putting a number on a job the night of the flood. Really, I'm so serious. But your customer would understand. I talked to a big group of people last week, and we talked about that. Now, some people have different opinions, but if you're here, you're buying into this. You're at least wanting to participate in the idea of how do I do things differently. That's what this is. This is the matrix with the blue pill and the red pill. If you're ready to walk through this door, let's walk, and you can join those that are already in there living their best life and saying, why didn't I do this a long time ago? So how do we do it? We've talked about you have to first get your numbers, step one. You have to figure out the process. Who's going to do that? It really is that simple. Make a decision, make a choice. Who's going to do that? How is it going to be done? And then who am I going to employ that has the capacity and ability to do that? Next thing you need to do is which platform, which software is going to do that be. If you are not going to use Xactimate, let's talk about options right quick. Okay, so I have an Excel spreadsheet. That literally could help you price every job that you do on the front end. Simple. Excel. You have a tablet, you get a new one, you can live in that whole world of what's in Google Drive, it's in Dropbox, whatever you want to do. It's a little inefficient. It works. I think going back and spending hours at night or employing someone that really isn't billable to the job to write in Xactimate for what the guys are doing in the field, when the guys and gals in the field know exactly what they're doing, now you can compensate them better for also being part of creating the invoice for that job. It's the model that I've used for millions and millions of dollars. So you have this Excel spreadsheets one. There are many softwares that are already out there that some of you may be using that have the ability to price a job on the front side. I don't know what you're using. I will tell you, I've taught people to use, I think iRestore, and I'm not paid by any of these brands, and I'm not promoting that they're perfect for your business. iRestore does this. JobDocs does it very well. I'm a big fan of JobDocs, good friends, as well as they listen to their users and they develop features that their users say. Job Progress is another one, not really a popular one in restoration, but huge in the contracting world. You can put your line items in there. You can use a tick sheet, they call it. Just have a field sheet that your team fills out. You already have Quickbooks, which is what you're probably invoicing in. Why not have the line items in there in categories for water, mold, equipment, whatever they are? People on this call right now use QuickBooks, and that's it. Now, you might ask the questions about how am I going to moisture map. Those are different questions. You know, how am I going to moisture map and do a sketch? People ask me all the time, if I don't use Xactimate, how can I sketch a job? Pen and paper. Used it for years. Graph paper. Sketch out a room. Sketch out another room. Label the walls. That was my moisture mapping as well. Whatever system you want. That's the good part about America. You can do whatever you want to do. Be efficient, be profitable. But you need to decide. I don't know what the right choice is for you. I have a bundle of ideas that can help people move to a very efficient, proactive, profitable combination of software efficiency and use, ease of use for your team. It might mean you would need to change completely everything you're doing, but they're out there. But QuickBooks, branded software made for our industry. There are other people who use softwares outside of our industry. And then we're back to, why not Xactimate? Why not Xactimate? I want to tell everyone here, as much as I talk about Xactimate, I'm not an Xactimate ninja. Thank you, Parker Olson and Watley, for creating that group, right? I'm not even in that group. I'm not a user of or a fan of Xactimate because of its inefficiency. I don't need a program to tell me what to charge for my job. I've done hundreds of millions of dollars in T&M, sketching it, planning it, doing it long form, reverse engineering from what the cost was going to be, what the margin I needed to make was, and things like that. there are options out there, but you have got to decide. You've got to know your numbers and then have confidence that whatever I do, it doesn't matter anymore. I know what it costs. I know what my job cost is, and I know what profit I need to have. What profit you need is different for everybody. How much do I add for profit? If you're a franchise, you have royalties. It's going to change that. I love 30% net. 30% net margins in this industry, to me, is a healthy rainy day fund for me to store away. It's not greedy. It's smart. It's profitable. Store money away for the future. So that's what I like to do. So I know I'm going over this, and then the last part of how we do it is you're going to have to train your teams. If I'm talking about this, and if you were to do it the way I like and the way I've seen mega companies, millions of dollars worth of business a year in sales, you're going to have to rethink of what your technicians, who they are. And I'll be honest, I think your technicians are begging for more opportunity and a chance to grow. You need to develop a training program of how to sit down with your team saying, guys, guess what? Guys and gals, we are shifting to a new model. We're going to start slow. We're going to only do it on mold. Maybe we're only going to do it on trauma, only for cash pay customers, whatever that is. We're going to price these jobs up front. You're going to do that. You're going to tell the team how to do it. They won't do it perfect the first time, just like you didn't. But you're going to train your teams to do it, and they're going to make a little bit more because you're going to start shifting work off of someone into another area, and you have extra funds to allocate to their pay. It's a win-win. Your customers love it. When you can go into a job on the front end and estimate a job, and your customer feels like you know what it's going to cost for that job, they trust that you know what you're doing. Handing a customer a blank piece of paper, asking them to sign a work authorization with no real idea that this is going to be 800 or 8,000 is a problem. It's not about contact adjuster, insurance company. They don't authorize bills. If it's covered or if it's not, they're going to pay what it costs as long as it's within the policy limits. It's a different conversation, but this is where I want people to start changing their mindset. You work for the customer. You tell the customer that I work for you. I always have, always will. We're going to price this job. I'm going to price it fairly for the quality that we do. They're going to say, how do you charge this much per hour for that? Well, it's funny you asked that. Victor that's here has trained. I spent $22,000 in his training and education, like a doctor. Doctors charge a lot because of all the colleges they go to, but they don't pay back their student loans, right? So you're going to train your teams, but you're also going to train your salespeople. They're going to sell knowing that you price the job up front. It's going to give you a unique advantage over everybody else. And also you're going to know how to close a job, giving the customer a number up front, if that makes sense. People tell me all the time, if I told my customer how much this was going to cost, they probably wouldn't hire me. Well, I'd rather know in the beginning than at the end after I spent the money. And then you're going to have the situation where the carrier is going to say, we can send out someone who won't, will do it for whatever we say they're going to do it for. Well, that's where client onboarding comes in. That's where we certainly should have another conversation. Client onboarding is completely a game changer, where you just kill that narrative because that company at that point probably works for the carrier, and just because they do it cheaper doesn't mean they do it well. So we all understand that. I'm not here to bash program vendors. But we all know we oftentimes go behind those that aren't making enough money. They will cut corners, and that's usually in labor and in time of drying and they're still wet. But you're going to train your team. You're going to train your admins. You're going to train your estimators, your bookkeeper. You're going to have to really do some training. So this is not in a week you're going to shift to this model, but in a month, in 2 months, with some gradual integrals and phases, you're going to say, what do I always say? Why didn't I do this before? I hope that makes sense. So any questions so far? We're at the point here, we're going to go into the summary. Are there any questions? Again, we're already at 40 minutes. I could have gone on for 2 hours. I didn't want to do a screen share of a spreadsheet and show. I don't have Xactimate. I wasn't going to open up Xactimate. But are there any questions from the few dozen, I don't know, a couple people we have here? Anybody here have any quick hurdles that they see that I haven't addressed, because it's very likely that some things in my head seem simple, but they're not. So is there anyone here, Toby? We have anybody that say anything? Okay, give me a thumbs up that you say, hey, this is something I want to try. Maybe I'm not even online. Maybe we're dead air. Maybe I'm talking for no reason. I can go get a coffee. So, I don't know. Really a little bit of affirmation. I assume I'm live. Why? This is asking me a lot of time. This is going to feel, how do you think we'll work with an adjuster that he questions about your pricing? That's from Kurt. Curtis Vaughn 1. Okay. How do you work with an adjuster that has questions about your pricing? Now I'm seeing everybody's comments. Let me first answer Kurt. Kurt, that's a big conversation. You don't work for the adjuster. You're not likely going to ever price your jobs for what the insurance wants to pay. You have to understand something very important, that the insurance company does not make money. I'm getting something out of my desk here. They don't make money by paying claims. They get money by not paying claims, okay? Are there adjusters that are good, honest people? 100,000%, absolutely. I know a lot of them. But they have guidelines to follow. Their company has instituted structure around how to maximize their profits. Doesn't make them bad, it just makes them smart. It's what I'm telling you to do today. Here's a book. If you don't have this book, I want you to write this down. Amazon, Delay, Deny, Defend, Why Insurance Companies Don't Pay Claims and What You Can Do About It. Jay Feinman, we call it the Bible. Don't strike me down, be sacrilegious. You need to talk to your customer up front to tell them we charge this, because this is a very specific price structure that's based on our cost to do the job correctly. I could be much cheaper if I didn't train anyone. And there are a lot of people in your community here, Mr. Homeowner, Mrs. Homeowner, that aren't trained, and they will do it cheaper. But I will tell you that mold will grow. We'll go in behind that. But we price our jobs separately. Xactimate's terms and conditions, and this is kind of back to Xactimate thing. Section number 7 of the user's license agreement of Xactimate states, and I'm paraphrasing, Xactimate does not set industry standard pricing, and our prices that we publish in our price data are historical in nature and will not reflect the true cost for every contractor globally. The other thing is it says you cannot, and I see some comments popping up here, you cannot preclude payment. If you're a user of Xactimate, you cannot hold back payment to anyone using their own price list based off of their overhead, location, proximity, complexity, market ratios. The fuel just went up, plastics go up, lumbers go up. Xactimate did not account for those because of that feedback. I have a course. You know, Toby, I think we might send everybody the course, What You Don't Know. It's a real simple course, a real small mini workshop. It's $149. I made it years ago, or a year ago or two. It tells you why the prices are the same. Kurt, in short, you don't owe the insurance company a justification why you're charging what you're charging. If they call you a crook, that's called slander. And if you're not a crook, you should have a real big problem with that. And you should also tell your customer in the beginning and throughout that if anyone talks bad about my company because of what I charge, they need to be asking the question, why would they do that? Because I have X number of reviews and X number of happy employees and X number of happy past customers that I charge the same way. They have healthy homes, they have dry homes, they have clean homes, they're living the dream. We actually get referrals from them. So why do we think that a party, and I haven't said anything bad about the insurance company, why are they bashing me? The customer should ask that question. So that's a bigger conversation. Curtis, check out my YouTube channel. I've got a lot of videos around that discussion, but they don't work for you and you don't work for them. You're both connected to that customer. You should have the same goal, but your price will not often be the same. I will tell you the last thing. If you are not getting pushback from a carrier, anyone want to tell me what that means? If you're not getting a pushback from the carrier, it means you're probably pricing too low and they're right where they want you to be. They have a predetermined number where they want you to be before they do the job. So it's there. You're going to have that discussion. You're going to have that pushback, but you're getting pushback using Xactimate pricing anyway. Somebody tell me if that's a lie, that if you're using Xactimate's published price, they're still wanting to cut your bill. So might as well be profitable doing it. Brandy, not to exceed NTE. I quit using that phrase around 2009 or 2010 because it sends a signal, verbal cue, that this job won't go over that. I have different terms. I call it committed budget. I call it ROM, range of magnitude. And that means based on my initial assessment and what I've learned so far, like a doctor would, or a car mechanic, I can't tell you what's going on inside the engine until I do some more diagnostics. But it sounds like this. My experience tells me it might be this. I'm going to go with that. But if I pull the heads off, and I'm talking the guy that doesn't know how to work on a car, is saying pull the heads off, I'm going to see a different issue. We're going to stop work, take photographs, put together a new price. We're going to have a different conversation because you need your car going. The same thing with the house. So I don't use the term not to exceed for that reason. I hope that makes sense. I'd like to figure out the QBO option. So Chris, yeah, QBO. I don't use QuickBooks, but you absolutely positively can YouTube. Check out a few people. Some of you may know Parker Olson. I think he's got some YouTube videos. Elena Wilson has been on my podcast, The Disaster Podcaster, shameless plug. Elena Wilson is an incredible teacher of Xactimate, but QuickBooks Online, you can just build your line items. Bob Timmel probably could take a phone call from you and show you. He puts his F9 notes in the description, outlines what that line item is. It's a really good option. It's something you're already using, and it's familiar to everybody. And plus, it's an invoice. I like to tell everybody watching this today at 5 o'clock, your company no longer uses the term estimate unless it's actually an estimate. Once you have performed the work and gotten an agreement from the customer to proceed, hopefully do a contract, maybe do a work authorization, put any money into, effort into, time into doing something, that's now going to be an invoice, and it's not negotiable. Estimate versus invoice, okay? I'd like to figure out, yeah, so especially when they don't pay O&P, Kurt. Yeah, so O&P, let me come back to that in just a minute. Another great one is from the Good Hands. Okay, Keith Sproles. There's a book by From Good Hands to Boxing Gloves. You know, all the terms, like a good neighbor, we're here for you, Good Hands Network. There's some snarky books that, you know, again, I look at them for what they are, but it's like as much as someone tells you how good they're here for you and how much they're going to help you, you got to question that, right? So there's a lot of reviews online for how Allstate treats people. If you've ever had a claim on a car or stolen, you know how they try to do you. So there's no secrets to what happens. We just have to convince the public that they're being bamboozled by the propaganda of the insurance carriers. What do you use to draw and sketch the room? Vivian, there are programs on the iPad. I think I pointed this out. I did this for years. Draw the sketch, make it a square, make it a hexagon. It doesn't have to be to scale. It's not important to be scale. And you need to measure the room. You need to know what the walls are, the cubic foot, the square foot, because you may be charging square foot for extraction or carpet removal or something like that. That's important, but your sketch doesn't. The sketch isn't important. And I'll tell you one more thing. I know we're running on some time here. I'm going to tell you something important about what we're doing all this documentation for, what that turns into. So I use that. Encircle has a great, again, not promoting a software. There are some things out there that you can make sketches on, but there are apps on your iPad that cost $1.99 for a year that you can use a pen and sketch a square or a rectangle. Again, many of the softwares, Job Docs has a great sketching tool, works with your Magic Plan. Anybody check out Magic Plan? It's a great one. Definitely on board to make the necessary adjustments to get off Xactimate. Good deal. Again, guys, not hating on Xactimate, but it's a business decision, right? How do you adjust your pricing for hurricane-related work? Wow, it's a bigger question, Marshall. I have a published rate sheet for all my work, but sometimes in cat work, it's not necessarily that the rates change. And time and materials, we talked about that earlier. Time and materials for sure is all I'll ever use on a cat. I've often used square foot pricing. I love square foot pricing. If I go into a home or a business and it's 2,000 square foot, 20,000 square foot, and I have a matrix that I keep up with different complexities of jobs, cat 1, 2, 3, how many contents, high ceilings, blah, blah, blah. It might be anywhere between $8 a square foot to $18, $20 a square foot, depending on what's going on. I like to walk in and say, I'm doing this job for this many square feet for this amount. At that point, don't worry about what I'm charging an hour. Don't worry about how much equipment I'm putting, how long I'm going to be here. I'm going to get you to a dry standard, to a clean standard, ready for reconstruction for the price that I said I would. If I miss a little bit, it's on me, but I know what I'm getting at the end, and therefore I can probably in cat work ask you for a little money up front. Sometimes, Marshall, you will add a cat surcharge. I've done storms and cats my whole life. There might be a 3 or 2% that you add to every single bill at the bottom that accounts for the people that are helping back office from home or even on site, helping run around, grab stuff, and they aren't necessarily billed to a job. There's pay is spread to all the jobs. So 3%, sometimes as high as 5%. Hurricane Sandy, New York City, we did a 5% because things were so expensive. So I hope that helps you there. Get a hold of me if you want to talk about that. Mark Shelberg, my hesitation towards moving to this type of pricing is the time spent defending and arguing to get paid from the insurance carrier. I do not have the time or the energy to argue each invoice. 1,000% agreeing, Jeff, and I don't think you should. I think educating the customer on the front end removes that. I don't argue with adjusters because all they want is to check the box saying that your job fits into mine. Not all adjusters are bad, but they definitely, we're fighting over a piece of pie. I don't owe them. They are supposed to pay the reasonable cost. That's the language used in most insurance policies. Look that up on the Department of Insurance for your state. And Jeff, I appreciate you saying that. I know you're a very professional guy. I'm with you. Anyone spending their time and energy arguing with the insurance company is absolutely stealing from their employees, their company, and their community. You are stealing time and positive energy to do the good work that you started out to do. You care about this. We have this overwhelming amount of empathy. I said I would bring this back. We have this overwhelming amount of empathy for the customers and what they're going through. Sometimes we allow that to go too far. And then the idea of the insurance company telling the customer that we're not going to pay everything that Jeff is going to charge, so you're going to pay out of pocket. Some people have their websites that say you won't have to pay anything the insurance doesn't pay. We need to stop because all we're doing is giving license to the carrier to pull those shenanigans. I call it fraud and bad faith. I go to the hospital, to a doctor, whatever my policy says they don't pay for and I had to have to recover, I'm going to get a bill and I'm going to pay for that. The doctor's office doesn't eat it and waive it to make the insurance company more money and to get me to be happier. They need to make a living. It costs them money to do it. It costs them money to buy those supplies. I pay that bill. Guys, we're not any different. So that's it. But I agree with you. You have to commit that I don't take phone calls from adjusters. When I had my company at the ends, I told my customer I will not take phone calls from them. I've already issued everything that it would take to ever need to justify that this job was done correctly, because they don't ever call and ask if I cleaned the job well, how dry it was. They don't care about the numbers on my drying report. They just don't even know that they have a report that has some. And as long as they can tell me I used too much equipment or not enough. Everything is based on price, not on the quality of the work I'm doing. When they start caring about the quality of my business and work and the profitability and the sustainability of my business, I'll care about theirs. But at this point, we have two different objectives, and we have to really focus on us like they are doing. I hope that's it. Jeff, I know that's and the older we get, the older, I don't know anything about, Jeff, how old you are. I'm almost 50, too close to 50. The older I get, the less I care to fight with anybody because I now know what I know. I can't unknow what I know. So I'm definitely on board. Okay. Thank you, Brandy. Good stuff. Bob, another good book is Pay Up by Chip Merlin. Marshall, some use their rates and add a percentage of Tina. Okay, I think that's what I said. Yeah, so add a percentage rate. Listen, guys, everything you do in your business is billable to the job. If you're in a cat situation, you go back to the RV or to the hotel and you work for 3 or 4 hours on writing reports and stuff like that, that should be going to jobs. I've done it my whole career and it gets paid. They don't tell you that in adjusters' handbooks that you're going to get paid. Bill us for everything you do. You're not putting enough money on the job. They're going to tell you, you weren't on site doing it. I was working on that job. If I'm 1,400 miles back home and my team's working in Houston and I'm working on efforts that are taking away from my business to work on that job with them, help them remotely, put me down for some hours because we're going to reclaim that. Guys, we're in the business. We're not a restoration company, Red Cross charity company, and all of you know that. All of you are really good business owners. If we don't start realizing what we're worth, then nobody else will. Our customers, the industry, and the carriers. So, in summary, any more questions? Throw them up here. I know we're running on almost an hour, and it's been great. I'm excited. I love this. I love teaching. I love answering questions. This is my best live way. I love to do it live. The online courses that we're making one right now, 60 days to build an incredible, sustainable, strong restoration company. We've got that completed. It's 60 days to build a strong company. It's fantastic. Covers most of everything we've talked about. But I'm not getting interaction, so it's a little different for me to sit in front of a camera with nobody on the other end. I don't know how Jeremy Reitz and David Hodge do it all the time, but they do. The summary. I put up here the number one, trust the process. It's going to be the hardest part is the mindset shift. It's going to be absolutely the biggest boulder in your way. Knowing that should tell you get past that. But it's not that easy. I have a lot of ways that I help people look through a lens and meet others that are doing it, and it seems to add a lot of confidence. We have masterminds. I have the Alliance of Independent Restorers. I'm all about bringing this industry together so that all the things that we say we can't do are quickly squished and squashed because you're seeing people do it. They're not breaking any laws. They're actually doing amazing work. So once you decide I'm going to do amazing work for my customers, now if you have customers who will not fight for you and themselves against a carrier, they're probably not a great customer for you. You're going to be sitting there at the end having done amazing work, what you were promised to do, and then you're going to have two people, a carrier side and maybe a TPA and a homeowner, telling you this is all we're going to pay. They breached a contract. That's why when I have a contract with a dollar amount, I will go to court. I will lien a property and say, we passed the point where we're now friends. We now have entered into a completely business, fair but firm structure, which I need to get paid because I have people here that I need to make sure get paid. So trust the process. Trust that this works. It won't work the same for everyone. Someone asked for Quickbooks. Someone said, I want to stay with Xactimate. You can modify your pricing Xactimate. All your prices can go up 20%. They can go up 18%. Your labor can go up. Your equipment can go down. If you want to be more competitive, you own your own equipment. Why not? If you own your own equipment and you want to be more competitive for retail work, lower the rental rates for your equipment. Now, you'll have people say, oh my God, you're too cheap. You're killing the rest of us. We all have paid off our equipment maybe 20 times over. But we think that equipment is how we make money until you price your labor to where that's cost effective. So trust the process. You got to get with your leadership team. Maybe that's just you. You have to be in alignment. This can't work where part of your company wants to do this and the other part doesn't. I know a lot of management structures that were ex-program guys that have just been working with adjusters so long that the idea of standing up to an adjuster is just something they just can't do. There was a time when adjusters used to give us work. Some may still do that. I have a lot of adjuster colleagues, and on the commercial side, it still happens. Adjusters will call up and say, hey, we've got a big loss. It's kind of complex. I don't think the local people can handle it. Or there's some people out here, they've been there for 2 or 3 days and they're kind of fumbling all over the place. Can you come out and take a look at it? We do that all the time. I have friends and colleagues that are contractors. I'll call and say, hey, meet me out there. We've got an adjuster ready to walk us in. I don't like doing that. If that other contractor could take a little bit of help from me, I'd rather help them stay on that job and succeed. Sometimes I'll fly out first or drive out first. So, but trust this process, get your team lead. If someone on your team doesn't want to do this, it's not going to work. They're going to sabotage it, and you're going to have completely conflicted customers, teams inside your field, your office. It's just not going to work. You've got to get alignment with it. Ask me how I know. Then you got to create the price list. Start with your most common items. Take your last 10 Xactimate mitigation invoices, categorize your equipment, your labor, the actions, the carpet. Make a spreadsheet. Again, I'm telling you, I don't know Xactimate, but I know you go into settings. You can export your price list. Maybe somebody on here right now. I know that we have some experts here. I would say Jason Riggs is phenomenal at utilization of Xactimate. Export the price list that you want. Maybe all your prices. I wouldn't say I think there's 20, 30,000 of them. Switch over and pull those out, modify them, label that file, and upload that back in Xactimate and label it as custom to your company. Could be ABC Restoration, price list, January, whatever. That now is where you price all your jobs. That's what everybody does that still use Xactimate. And again, if you get my course on Xactimate, you'll understand that you're not affecting the change in the market. Giving the feedback up through exact analysis, even if you're not on the program, of your modified prices will increase that delta. So you're up here, the prices are here. The closer they get, the less pushback you're going to get. But if you're using a customized price list and you're 20, 30% more than Xactimate, you're going to have adjusters tell your customers, I'm not paying their price list because I'm only going to pay you what Xactimate pays. Get the terms and conditions from Xactimate and you'll approve that they're using that software against the policy of what they agreed to, and they're breaking the law and their contract, which is their policy. Their policy does not get to say, I get to choose what I want. Don't let adjusters bamboozle you into telling you to be cheaper because of their bad behavior. Don't do it, guys. Don't. So get your customer price list, start using it, try it. Like I said, do it just on bio, trauma maybe, self-pay jobs, mold. Use a custom price list. You're going to fall in love. You're going to become intoxicated with the profits that you can make, that you should be making. I'm not advocating anyone today to gouge prices, but I think we're so far below as an industry of what we should be charging that I don't think we're going to probably see that happen. I've seen it happen. I've seen people charging $35 a square foot for drying a building. That's too much, but if they can get it, I mean, how is that wrong? Anybody watch Shark Tank on Friday nights? Kevin O'Leary loves big profit margins. He will actually give you $1 million to invest in your company if you have good profit margins, 500x. How is that really, really wrong? Insurance companies did not become the richest industry behind big pharma by paying claims out at what they should be paid. They pay under. And again, I'm not against them making profit, but they're not going to make it off of my back. And if they want to mistreat my customers, I'm going to give the customers some resources with the APA to show them how to do it. So, and then you're just going to adjust your client onboarding. Client onboarding means you're going to have conversations long before you even met the customer, your marketing, your contracts, your website. You're going to have, when you first meet the customer, you're going to make some promises. You're going to allude to how you do the work. You're going to set the expectations. You're going to do that work and deliver and even over deliver. And then you're going to hand them an invoice like you said you would at the end of the job. Guys and gals, I will tell you that there were a lot of jobs I got paid in full at the end of the job. We all know how comfortable it is to walk away with payment and then have a carrier try to reach you, say, I'd like to talk to you about reviewing this bill. I don't need to review it. It's already been paid. Go talk to the customer, right? You know, everybody's had that happen before. It's a great place. It can happen if you frame it up to go that way. Guys, that's my presentation. I just wanted to open the conversation. I get asked about this. It seems that many things I talked about were still, and this was who this was guarded, meant for, was to free that up. But software-wise, we can have that conversation. I'm not on any payroll for any software company. I don't take kickbacks. I don't take any referral fees for any software. I don't believe in that because I want to be objective when I tell you what I think you need based on your company size, the type of work you do. I might tell you 3 or 4 different ones that we may try and choose from. So software can do a lot these days. I don't think we should be software companies, but I think we should utilize software in our companies to keep up with the times. We're in the year 2022. Elon just bought Twitter. Things are changing, right? We got to change with it, or we stay the way we always have been, and we don't get what we get. We always get what we used to get. So any questions here? T&M, remember the best practice: accurate, consistent, and transparent. Yep, get agreement up front, and remember to document. All that. You should have, that should be, thank you. That may be someone from T&M Pro. I hope it is. Maybe it's somebody from there. That should be automatic. It doesn't matter if it's a cash customer, insurance company, FEMA. You should be doing the same consistent work no matter who it is. That puts you above reproach. That leaves it where you are never, ever, ever questioned. When everybody else in the claims process might pull some games, you are solvent, you are clear, you are above board. But to do that, to be that kind of company, which my community needs and wants, and they're begging for, when someone calls a service contractor today, this current world that we live in, they're not expecting much because the bar has dropped so low. If you can be not only who they hoped you would be, but even better, they will tell people about you. You know I'm right. You see it all the time. If you're in these Facebook groups for neighborhoods, there's always that plumber or HVAC guy that gets tons of tags. They tag him, tag. I know people that are restoration companies that do the same thing. I'm not here to talk to you about marketing, but I'm going to tell you right now, doing good work is your best marketing tool you'll ever have. And then not be afraid to PR the good work that you do. But you do have to get the customer up front. If anybody's avoiding giving a customer a ballpark or range or even a specific number, it tells me 2 things. You're ashamed of what you're charging, or you don't know what it's going to be yet until you get over into Xactimate. Change it, please. I think our industry would improve from that substantially. God, we had, at one point, we had up to 40 people on here. It was really a great day. Now, we had a few hundred join and subscribe, register. You're going to get a copy of this. I'd rather everybody would have joined in and had some questions, but I understand. Listen, we work in the disaster business. Thank you, Clark. You appreciate it, man. I appreciate you being here. I do a lot of these. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm trying to do a lot more. We have our podcast every week on Wednesdays at 3. Check it out. Our podcast is really a call-in live show. 3 p.m. Eastern every week. We have a guest or a topic. We have the call lines open. You can call in. You can be on the air and ask a question of me or the guest or even in general. And if someone's listening, they may call in and say, I got an answer for the call. It's just like the old radio days, man. Yeah, thank you, Jeff, for appreciate it. T&M again says, get the agreement to price and terms and conditions, then do your job and bill fully supported. Yeah, once you know, what I'm seeing here from T&M is once you know that you've documented that job well, you really don't need to take any criticism or questions from anybody. Now, if somebody has a question from my understanding, it's professional to have enlightenment of that. But when that switches over to what do you want to charge, it's kind of where I get a little cold shoulder on it, right? It's just what I do. I work for me. I don't work for them. If I did work for them, if the insurance companies want to save money and control this thing, they need to go out and buy equipment and become restoration contractors. It's not going to happen. This book will tell you why. Delay, deny, defend. That's all I've got. I always hope when I have a lot of viewers that those that didn't say anything conceptually understood. I didn't want to leave too many open areas. I just couldn't dive in. I'm not going to show everybody how to dissect their P&Ls on this webinar. But if that's not a strength for you, there are ways and places to get that help. Get with your accountant and say, I'd like to understand what it really costs me to open my business like if it costs you $28,000 to open your doors, what do you need, what do you need to sell with profit that you want to keep to do that? Then the next thing is get your receivables under control. Last piece, last nugget, my receivables should never, ever, except for very unique circumstances, should be much over 10% of my annual. So if I'm $1 million a year company, it's dangerous for me to have much more than $100,000 in receivables out in the field. Now, that cycles, you'll invoice a bunch of work, collect your jobs quicker, get paid. Don't let that become $300,000 or $400,000, because you start to approach, you're starving yourself in your company. You're starving your airplane. If you get our course for 60 days to build a stronger business, you'll understand that you're starving an airplane that's flying at 34,000 feet because it runs out of fuel, profit, and the plane starts to go down and scares everybody that's on the plane. Our teams in network appreciate you. Hey, you're welcome, Brian. Really enjoy your insight. Many of you are already on my social media networks. Check us out on LinkedIn, on Facebook, whatever you want to do. Don't check us out. Just tune in for the webinars. It's good with me. Hey, everyone, if we don't have any further questions, I appreciate all of you. If you want to do me anything right now, if you really, really want to do, this is my ask. I'm sorry, not a sales pitch. Go to my Google, Google, Google Restoration Advisors. Give us a 5-star review. Just give us a review feedback. That obviously, just like your business, the more reviews we have, people check us out, testimonials, we can put that on our website. It helps us with branding, and that's the one thing I can ask for. And then YouTube channel, you always get good stuff there. No telling what I'm going to say. I've got a bunch of great ones this week. I read a story from a person that's on the call about how they were bad faith treated with the insurance company. Go to subscribe, click the little, what do they say, the bell, so that you get notified. Podcast. That's it. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic week. Reach out to us at restorationadvisors.com if you need something. And thank you for joining, and thanks for everything you do for this industry.